And today I'm going to be continuing to talk about one of the gods in Egypt, or from Greek mythology. And I want to talk about Hercules, or Hercules. I've always found him an interesting character. So, he is the most important of the Greek demigods. Um, and he is from Zeus, and he was the son of a mortal woman named Alcmene, and then the supreme god Zeus, like I said. And Zeus' lovely wife Hera hated the child born out of wedlock, and she sent two snakes to kill the baby. But the young boy killed the animals, and he became a strong warrior. However, Hera struck him with madness, and he killed his own children. When he had recovered, he consulted the oracle of Delphi, and she ordered him to serve their relative Eurystheus, the king of tyrants, who would order him to perform the 12 labors. And one of the first labors was Lion of Nemea, which was a terrible beast, and it was resistant against all weapons, but Hercules strangled it. And then he wore it, that is the invulnerable belt, as an armor. Next after that, there was Hraðlest, which was a water snake, and another town near Terence. It was difficult because it has 9 heads, and every time Hercules cut off one of the heads, 3 new heads grew in its place. But he had good friends, and one of his friends, Iolaus, burned down a tree, and the hero used the blazing branches to sear the roots of the new heads. It reminds me of someone else with a lot of heads. But after the battle, Heracles dipped his arrowheads in the monster's poisonous skull, and as an archer, he was now invincible. Then there's a Ceryneian hint. Then Eurystheus sent Heracles to Cerynea, where he had to catch a hen that was dedicated to the goddess Artemis. She was the goddess of beauty, if I remember correctly. And larger than a bull, this terrible creature destroyed the northern Peloponnese in Greece. He pursued it to the northernmost edges of the earth, where it lived, and finally overcame the animal, which he carried back home. Then there's the Erymanthian boar, which lived on the slopes of Erymanthus, mountain range in the northern Peloponnese. It was a dangerous monster that ravaged the farmers' fields. After a brief visit to the centaurs, Heracles drove the beast into the snow, where he was able to capture it, and then he carried it back home. Then he fought the Augean stables, or he cleansed the notorious stable of King Augeas of Elis in one day. It was terribly smelling, but there was simply too much of a dung. So he accepted the advice of Iolaus, who diverted a river through the stables, and that swept away all the dirt. But the king Eurystheus refused to accept it as a really performed task. So now he decreed that his relative had to perform 2 additional tasks. One as a compensation for the help of the river god, and one as a compensation for the assistance of Iolaus when he killed the Hraðlest. So he didn't make it easy for him. But next he removed the countless man-eating birds and invested in the marshes near Stymphalus. There are the Stymphalian birds. They had wings, claws, and beaks of metal, and were dedicated to the war god Eris. The goddess Athena gave him a riddle that had been made by Hephaestus. Hephaestus. And so the birds became terrified and flew away. And next he fought a Cretan bull. Well, it's not quite clear what the nature of the animal is, but he is number 7, and the first four voyages has brought Hercules to the south, north, east, and west, so all around where he was fighting. After that comes matters of Diomedes. He went north, that is Hercules, and he captured 2 kobolds called Hercules. Visited his friend Admetus in Thessaly, and he liberated Admetus' recently died wife Alcestis. When he reached Thrace, killed Diomedes and fed him to his own horses. Maybe not the most beautiful story, but after that he fought for the belt of Hippolyte. Hippolyte was a queen of the Amazons, which was a legendary tribe of female warriors living on the southern shores of the Black Sea. And then he manned a ship and sailed to the east in a voyage that resembles the better-known story of Argonauts. Hippolyte, however, fell in love with Hercules and wanted to give the bridal spontaneously. However, Hera made it difficult and spread the rumor that the Greeks wanted to abduct the queen of the female warriors. Then war broke out, and Hercules was forced to kill Hippolyte. Then there's Cattle of Geryon, which is a 3-headed king of mythological kingdom. And he had a cattle. No, he had kettles. And so then there were some temples dedicated to Melkart, a god that was later identified with Hercules. And the second last thing he had to do, out of many, was obtain the apples of Hesperides, the Western girls. They were the daughters of Hraðlest, the giant that carried the heaven on his shoulders. But he held the world up for Atlas while he helped him get the apples. And then he visited the oracle of Zeus Ammon-Siva and founded the Egyptian city of Thebes, actually, after that. And then there's Cerberus, the last of his requirements, which is a 3-headed dog of the underworld. That brought him back to the Peloponnese. And during his last fight, Hercules was protected by the belt he had obtained during his first labor, which came in handy. And then after that, he became the king of Peloponnese and married Deianira. So he actually did many other things, but those are the main things that he had to do. And he went all around the place, all over, and experienced a lot of things which made him stronger and wiser. And thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.